And we begin with a Live at 10 exclusive. Governor Kathy Hochul wrapping up a meeting at the White House this evening, discussing the federal response to the ongoing immigration crisis here in New York. She sat down with our very own Kevin Fry after that meeting this evening, and Kevin is here now leading us off with exclusive reporting. Good evening, Kevin.
Yeah, good evening, Cheryl. This was a lengthy meeting lasting, I'm told, about 2.5 hours. Among those in attendance, in addition to the governor, the White House Chief of Staff, and also Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas of the Department of Homeland Security, going over next steps, outlining things that the White House is already doing. The governor emphasizing to me repeatedly that she made it clear to them where she stood on this, and she wanted to make sure that her voice was heard. Here's some of our conversation reflecting in just the half hour or so after that meeting wrapped up.
I walked out of there with a sense they are committed. They understand that a lot of time has passed and that this situation has only grown more dire. We have 3,000 people arriving last week alone, and our shelter system is overflowing. And I reinforced my message, which I said back with labor leaders and government leaders and business leaders and the mayor back in May. Let them work. Find a path so these individuals can get what they came here for, the ability to be independent out of the shelters.
When it comes to that work authorization, did you get any commitments on the steps forward, any acknowledgement that there could be changes that they could do? Because when I talk to the White House, typically what they say is Congress needs to act in order for us to change these things. So is there any movement that you're seeing from the White House?
Well, they understand my impatience with this issue. Congress may or may not act. The last time there was major immigration reform, I was a staffer for Senator Moynihan in my 20s, and we had a path to citizenship for some and more enforcement on the other. So that's the past. I can't wait for the Republicans to understand that they have a responsibility to work with President Biden, to work with Democrats in the House and Senate, and come up with a solution once and for all, because the American people have been talking about immigration for decades, and they want answers. But I can't wait for that. I have to deal with the crisis in our state. So I have pressed the White House to find a path so we can get more people working. They're starting tomorrow with a app notification for people who have applied to come into this country under the CBP app. They think that's going to address a significant number of people, to tell them you need to apply for work status or you are already eligible. So we'll work with them. This is a path to deal with some of the people in the shelters. It's not the ultimate solution. They also said that they'll surge resources. What does that mean?
Yeah.
In the next couple of weeks, and we haven't identified the exact date, but they will bring many more people, and I've asked for high numbers, I don't know the number yet, of people who work for Homeland Security to literally show up in Manhattan, make themselves available to allow us to start processing thousands of people so they can apply for asylum legally, and that triggers the time that allows them to work legally. That's great.
Is your expectation then, though, that folks that are already in New York City's shelters or in other parts of the state, they could receive that notification that they've already gone through enough of that process?
If they've applied through the app, which has been in effect since last January.
Okay.
So that is not the entire population.
Sure.
And what I'm asking for is to look at federal law, find areas where I can get people working on our farms.
Yeah.
We have a harvest just around the corner. I have 5,000 farm openings. Those employers, those farmers need the workers. So
could there be a visa situation there?
That's what I'm asking for. Again, they couldn't give the answers today. I didn't expect them to, but I just want to sit there in person, look everybody in the eye, and tell them, I'm the governor of New York. I'm here on behalf of 20 million people who are asking for federal intervention immediately.
Do you feel that if they follow through on the commitments that were made in this meeting, that you will be reaching a point where they are doing enough at the federal level?
A lot has to happen at the border.
Okay.
A lot has to happen at the border. I mean, we're still experiencing 3,000 coming to New York alone a week. I said, what's the end game here? What we can manage. We can put up a shelter to take care of 2,000 people at enormous costs. And I know the frustration of New Yorkers who are seeing something that they never expected. You know, there's soccer fields being used for migrants and community centers and facilities in their neighborhoods. This is a whole new dynamic for residents of New York, and it's exasperating for many of them. I understand that. I understand that as real anxiety. I can't guarantee after one meeting that that's going to be gone tomorrow, but I feel this is a step in the right direction. But I'm here to tell New Yorkers, we're not done with this. This is maybe just, it's not the end, it's not the beginning, it's maybe the end of the beginning.
We also just got a readout, Cheryl, from the White House's perspective on this meeting. Just a couple of the highlights here, and I'm reading this in real time, so I apologize. The White House says that they're going to be working with New York and New York State on a month of action, quote unquote, to close the gap between those who are eligible for work authorization and those who have actually gone through the application process to help move that along in New York. Also, the governor and the administration, according to this, and the governor reiterated this in my conversation with her, they have discussed a number of steps for various other departments and agencies at the federal level, including the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Education, and so forth, to help New York, including with, of course, the influx of children that are going to have their educational needs met in New York, also with vaccinations for some of these immigrants as well. And overall, the other note here is that the White House emphasizes that New York has already been granted about $140 million in additional assistance, and that the White House is requesting, leaning on Congress, for additional funding to help with the migrant situation, to help with sheltering needs across the country. But whether Congress will act to approve that sort of funding as part of an emergency supplemental bill, that's going to be something to keep an eye on when Congress returns starting next week.